The chances of somebody having the same top 5 strengths as you in the same order is 1 in 33 million. And when you understand that and understand the significance of the order, that it really does help us see we really do stand apart.
Have you ever been told to work on your weaknesses? Maybe by a teacher, a manager, or even the own little voice in your head or the devil on your shoulder? Because here's the thing, research shows that no matter how hard you polish a weakness, the best you'll ever achieve is average. But when you double down on your strengths, then what you're doing is you're opening the possibility of being absolutely freaking exceptional. Hi, I'm Deirdre Martin, triple certified award-winning international best-selling author. I help entrepreneurs like you make your first million by building a brand and business that's uncopyable, joyful, and wildly profitable, all without you burning out, bottlenecking your business, or sacrificing what matters most. And today I'm joined by Dr. Margaret Kennedy of Kennedy Insights. She's a Gallup-certified strengths coach with a PhD in leadership and culture, and she's on a mission to help organizations, leaders, entrepreneurs, and teams stop being beige all-rounders and instead own what makes them stand apart. In this episode, you will discover why fixing weaknesses keeps you stuck at average, how to use your Gallup strengths to create an unfair advantage in your business, and the small shifts that help you market, sell, and deliver from your natural edge. By the end, you'll see why it's almost sinful to go through life without knowing and using what makes you exceptional. Margaret, welcome to the Master Your Business podcast.
Thank you, Deirdre. Delighted to be here with you.
Well, I'm super excited to talk about the topic today, strengths. And I'm going to start off straight away by saying, let's shake up some assumptions, Margaret. What's the biggest myth that people have about strengths that drives you totally up the wall?
So it's actually the opposite to strengths. What I really struggle with and it's something we're conditioned to believe from our earliest days, that what we have to focus on is our weaknesses, that we have to master our weaknesses. And this is just such a powerful message we get, that, from our first days in formal education, as a 5-year-old in the classroom, that the focus isn't on what you've got right. The red pen comes out and it highlights what it is that you've gone wrong. And I think that conditioning, it's borne out throughout our whole lives. And what happens is that instead of us spending the time nurturing where we have natural talent, that what we do is we dismiss it. So, if we go back to school, that secondary school, that the majority of children now in families that are in a position to be able to do it, that there now grinds or extra tutorials is par for the course. Very few families actually invest in the subjects that you are showing the greatest talent in. What we tend to do, if you, Deirdre, wrote the most beautiful, descriptive, emotive essays, instead of getting you in front of people who write beautifully, instead of developing it, the money probably went and the focus probably went to maths, where you were probably crap. I'm not saying you were, but that we often get the person who is brilliant in that creative way may not be so strong in the logical, in the mathematical. And I believe that this focus on where we're deficient, where we're weak, is resulting in we're creating a society where fewer and fewer of us are exceptional. That the Michelangelos, the Da Vinci's, the creator of the Gardens of Versailles, that if when they were young, that the focus had been though I think Da Vinci, to be honest, I don't think there was too many areas that he was deficient. But if the area had been on fixing them instead of letting them blossom. And to go back to your question, what drives me mad is that we are denying ourselves, our children, our communities that chance to absolutely excel.
I love that. And we had this discussion once before, which was partially, why I thought this is a really great conversation to bring to the show, because that really resonated with me when I heard that. And when I think about my own daughters, one who's still in school and the subject choices and things that she was making, it really did influence it in terms of, yes, let's support her with the things that she's excellent at instead of the things that she's struggling at, and so she can get to where she wants to go. It really had an impact, a profound impact, Margaret, when you said that to me before. And I'm curious, because most people think they know their strengths, but knowing them, being aware of them, and actually leveraging them are two totally different things. So how would you describe that difference?
Firstly, I don't think most people know their strengths. It's actually shocking the number of people that when they're sent my way. So I'm a Gallup-certified strengths coach, and the number of them that will admit to me before they do the assessment that they're afraid they don't have any strengths. There's nothing that shines. And that every one of us, I've never met anyone that isn't in some way exceptional. And even if we have a hunch about what it is that we do well, that unless they're polished, I think of our strengths like our muscles. And unless we get out and we exercise them, like you on the horse this morning, unless we get an opportunity to flex our muscles, they can stay dormant. Just because we have a natural ability in that area, we still have to be really intentional about nurturing them, building them, and every day turning that focus. I think that our natural, our default is about 90% of the time we're working on where we see ourselves as lacking. I know with me, I'm struggle with organization. I struggle with the small detail. They're my lowest strengths. They're there in black and white for me. I don't need to wonder about it. I know. And when I slip, when I turn my focus off what it is I think I'm put on this planet to do, that these things start piling up, that I'm not getting this right. I've let that slip. And the reality is, and this was something that Donald Clifton, who created Clifton Strengths, this was something that he spoke about brilliantly, that no matter how hard we work on polishing, on developing our lowest strengths or our weaknesses, that we'll only get to an average. But the more that you, firstly, are able to name what it is, this is where I have the most natural ability. And the more time that you spend polishing and flexing those top 5, top 10, you have far more likelihood to become exceptional. So by defaulting to focusing on our weaknesses, that the best we can hope for is to be an average.
And that's really powerful, even knowing that, because it's like, okay, I'm crap at organization. Get me a VA who can help me with the organization and keep me on track, right? or I'm crap with the finance and organizing the invoices and bookkeeping. Get me somebody who can help with that. And so it's really powerful to know that stuff. And I'm curious about you, Margaret, when you did your first Gallup Strengths and discovered what your own strengths were, how did that shift how you showed up in business and life? Were you making changes like that?
I was. Now, I first did the assessment, it must be 20 years ago. And the interesting thing is, even though so much has changed in my life in those 20 years, that essentially it's still the same strengths that are in the top 10. The order has changed with some of them, but essentially they're the same. My number one strength, and this is the one thing that stayed consistent, is maximizer, which is, my husband would call it my pain in the arse quality. It's about taking good to great. So average, good is something that bores me, that we've one life. And this is completely influenced by that number one strength. I'd have believed before I named it that there was an unsettledness that I had. I'd have put it down as a fault, instead of seeing that I'm somebody that will raise the bar, no matter what I'm involved in. And absolutely, it can be being a pain in the ass, but I'll ask the questions, I'll push. How can we make this? How can we make this powerful? So I think that was the most important change for myself, that seeing that actually this isn't a fault. This is something that I do, and I do brilliantly. Being able to name and understand what it is that I do, like how the relationships, how I build relationships, understanding that I'm a relator. I build deep, deep relationships. I have very little interest in quantity, but I'm all about quality and understanding that. And instead of beating myself up for not loving a networking, as in a traditional networking event, but about deepening the relationships that are around me. Yeah, I think that was the main thing. And getting to work with people as a coach, I think one of the greatest delights in my life is helping shine a light where people are brilliant. Will, he'll be amazed at how much I talk about him in these things when he listens to this. But he says that I go into the kitchen with a little skip when I've had an amazing strengths coaching session. And there's no greater privilege than to work with people to help them see, wow, this is where I stand apart. The chances of somebody having the same top 5 strengths as you in the same order is 1 in 33 million.
Wow, that's a fascinating statistic.
Yep. And when you understand that and understand the significance of the order, that it really does help us see we really do stand apart.
That's really interesting. It's about 15 years ago since I did my Gallup Strengths Finder as well. And because I did it when I worked in the bank many years ago. And I'm curious, how do you recommend that people review it regularly enough, or what would you recommend?
Gallup would argue that the first one you do is the most accurate. So they don't push people to repeat it. I think when there's been a lot of change in people's lives, even if it's only the order that has changed, I think, yeah, Deirdre, we have to do this. Have to get you to do this again. I'll send you the link. Yeah.
Interesting. And yeah, because I am curious, and I know, like with values, and I talk about this with clients all of the time. We talk about your values, and you might have personal values, and you'll have your brand values, and they're separate. Often they overlap or they're intertwined, depending on whether you're a personal brand or you're a business brand and you have people on your team. And you know, as your business grows and as your life changes and things are happening behind the scenes at home, your values change. And so that's why I was just curious, is it the same with strengths? As you evolve and your business
Yeah.
evolves, do your strengths evolve with it? And like it makes sense, but I think like I think with some of these things, take DISC for example. So one time when I worked in the bank, we did all of these leadership things for so many years, and it was wonderful for me because it's really helped me now in my business in terms of leading my business, leading myself. But with DISC, I think it's a little bit funny because when you are in a particular role, it demands different things of you. And so different character traits come out. And I wonder, is that the same with the strengths as well? So, for example, if I was in a HR role, my character strengths might be different to what they might be if I was in a sales role, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I don't think they change. I think we use them in a different way. So,
Mm,
for instance, I was talking about me being a relator. So, if I moved into marketing, I don't think I'd wake up tomorrow and be somebody that absolutely loves to go into a room with 200 people, like the wooers of the world and spread fairy dust. Like, I think I'd need a lobotomy for that to be me. But if I was in marketing, I would understand I need to move beyond my tight circle. And
Mm,
what I would be doing is I would be more intentionally reaching out one by one, more
mm,
coffees, more opportunities to broaden that network, but in a way that is congruent with who I am.
I love
So we
that. That's a
don't
great.
tend to, like, people go through incredible life changes and they don't suddenly go from, typically, if you're somebody that's really strong in, say, execution, where I'm really low and I have to work really hard at that. And if I was really strong as a strategic thinker and I moved into an execution role, it's not that suddenly I would excel at the execution. I would find my way of doing it from a more mental processing, a more strategic approach to it.
Mhm.
So it's not that the strengths change, it's how we use them changes.
Mm. And you know, like you said, some of the things, if you were to step into a role like marketing and, you know, without having to get a lobotomy or anything like that, can you share an example of a time where you or a client or whatever wasn't playing to their strengths and the cost of that?
What I see a lot is that when we're starting in our careers, and a lot of the work is technical work, and what will really hold you back early in your career is being low on the execution, the discipline, the productivity, the delivery, execution, that, but when you want to or start on that ladder to a leadership position, that unless you're able to let go of that, to be able to step up to a more overall strategic perspective, and it means literally what I always use is the expression getting your head out of the coleslaw bucket. So Brody Sweeney wrote a book called, I don't know what it was called, but it was about him starting O'Brien sandwich bars. And there was a line that stuck with me. And I'm sure if he's listening to this, he's going to be amused at. I say this line, I'd say every week, that he talked about how he realized when he had his first sandwich bar that if he didn't get his head out of the coleslaw bucket and stop focusing on making the bloody sandwiches, he was never going to have two or three or four. And people who are not able to move and get their head out of the coleslaw bucket, wherever they are in pharma and tech, wherever they are, and actually lift their head up from the execution tasks and to focus more, because there's none of us one dimensional. that we have strengths across the different domains. And it's about turning that focus and flexing the strengths that are about influencing, that are about thinking, that are about building relationships. But I haven't solid research on this, but anecdotally, I would think women struggle more with this than men. That for women, the actual doing is how a lot of us believe we're demonstrating our value.
What do you mean by that?
That women believe, a lot of women believe that how they are demonstrating their value is by being able to do everything, turn their hand to everything, be the all-rounder. And many of them actually believe that to have a successful career, that they have to be an all-rounder, able to turn their hand to anything. And it is what I would describe as the stone many careers perish on. That none of us shine being an all-rounder. We become invisible. We become beige. And that's something like our education system, again, it's drilled into us. We've a leaving cert here in Ireland that you have to be able to do everything, instead of allowing you focus on where you're naturally brilliant. And the good all-rounder, obviously there are men that also struggle with this, but it's much more of an issue for women. We talk about women being the multitaskers. They can keep a house going, they can keep 2 kids on their hips, they can have a job, and we congratulate them for that. But it's something we need to shout about more. This is holding you back. And the good all-rounder is never talked about, and there's an exciting project.
That's so true. And one thing I've looked at being a business owner and entrepreneur as being like what, for me personally, I've always been a good all-rounder, Margaret. I'm somebody who fits that category and kind of felt, well, I don't know where I really excel, and have for a lot of times throughout my life had felt that way until finally now I know I'm doing what I was meant to do. And so that really excites me and is fulfilling. But because of my good all-roundedness, let's say my jack of all trades hat on, I actually think that that's been really helpful in terms of being an entrepreneur when you're bootstrapping and getting started. But absolutely, I can see that when I play to my strengths unapologetically and I delegate all the rest of that stuff, it just makes it so much easier. And so I'd love to hear, for you, for your clients, what have you noticed when they've started really owning their strengths unapologetically? What have you seen or witnessed or experienced as a result of that?
People shine. And what I absolutely love, like the person that's the opposite to me, I don't have a problem talking up. I have a problem shutting up. But we have a world that celebrates extroversion, charisma, confidence, being very articulate. And while absolutely it's great, and I love that in myself, that I'm somebody that's not afraid to talk up and love it a lot of the time. Our leadership, people who are in influential positions, that is the personality type that dominates. And I don't think it's serving the world very well that are more introverted, are more cautious, are more contemplative, very considered colleagues get left behind, and they don't get a voice at the most influential tables. And when I work with somebody that has been invisible, that is doing brilliant work in the background, but they're not getting that acknowledgement, and they're not having the influence. When I work with leaders and they own it and they begin to see, I'm needed. My voice is needed. I'm bringing confidence and a deep certainty in the information I'm bringing, pulling the reins a little bit more conservative, risk averse, that to entrepreneurs like us, that's like, oh my God, like it's torture. But we do need those people also around those tables. And I think they're the people, which are literally the opposite to myself. They're the people I delight to work with most, to see people step up and demand their place and own their voice. There's one lady I think back to, and she's just the most fabulous woman. But she was in the company 11 years. She was in the role 7 years, and her advancement had never been discussed. And she was probably doing about 3 jobs and was doing a great job. And anyway, she came back from maternity leave, and she, at the same time, she came on the Wild program with ourselves, which is our Women in Leadership program. And she says, how she describes it is, I woke up. And that was 3 years ago. And she's had 5 promotions. And she has a senior global role today. No one is missing her.
That's giving me goosebumps hearing that. That's incredible. It's like that she had that awakening, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And like for business owners, how does that apply with business owners? Like what am I trying to ask you? I think how do strengths create that sort of unfair advantage for business owners when they lean into it like that and they have that aha or awakening?
I think it's an even bigger challenge for business owners, this having to wear all the hats. And what we do is we spend so little time, and I put my own hand up here, we can spend so little time getting out and talking about why we've created this business and what problem we're uniquely placed to solve with our clients, because we're doing everything. And I think that for the business owner, it's just as important to get really clear. What am I uniquely placed to do? And to find, and this is something working with you, Deirdre, that you constantly remind me of, find the time to do what I do best, or to serve the people I want to serve. And that's that when we get really, really clear on what we do well. So I think what I do brilliantly, there's loads of things I do badly, but I know what I do brilliantly is I ask brilliant questions. And I have an ability to shift a conversation, or if a team or an organization is stuck. I don't know where the questions come from a lot of the time, but I can ask a question. And for me, that confidence in knowing that just gives me a really solid foundation. And it brings me back to, am I doing enough of this week? What do I need? What do I need to offload so I get to do what I do really well?
I love that. And for a couple of reasons, because you say what I'm brilliant at and you know what you're not brilliant at. But Margaret, when you say that, it's not in an arrogant way or anything like that. It's like I can feel you are freaking brilliant at what you do. And I know you are because I know you at this stage. And I love that, because going back to what you said earlier is when you have those conversations with clients and you come out tiptoeing into the kitchen nearly on your tippy toes with excitement, that Will can spot it too. So like you're in your element when you're getting to step into that strength, which is powerful. And I'd love to know, like, I don't know, is there something where particular strengths are blind spots around strengths can cause friction for people like leaders or entrepreneurs? Is there like, can a person have 5 top strengths where they're literally, you know, they're causing friction, one is running against the other? Does that happen?
It's not so much that the strengths would be banging up against each other, but absolutely you can have a bucket of strengths that, so, if you're working with somebody that is number one, harmony, it's about consensus, it's about fairness, and then you're somebody like me, and I'm not unfair. That's not that I try and break harmony, but I will listen to the most compelling voice. I'll hear that voice as opposed to always giving everyone equal airtime. I'd be thinking, well, which argument here should we listen to? Which is the most compelling? Which is the most evidence-backed? So it's being aware that there are some strengths that need to understand and respect each other. So I worked with a colleague before that was very high in a strength, restorative. And restorative people are brilliant at it. They love solving complex problems. They're like the devil's advocate. And it's, and the what if, but not in a wallowing in problems. It's loving to solve problems. And I'm somebody that loves to jump to tomorrow. I'm excited about possibility. I'm excited about tomorrow. And we used to work together and we would do workshops. And at the end of a great day, I'd be buzzing with a great day, great feedback. And he would say to me, have you an hour? And we'd sit down and we'd go through how we could have done better. Now, that was a kick in the stomach to me, because that in my mind that wasn't great. Because my mind, I was already planning next week. I was gone. And we had stopped working together before I understood that. So often, when we don't know who we are, what matters to us, and sometimes it doesn't mean you have to go and do your strengths. You get this, but there's an exercise I use, and it's something that you could be working with somebody 25 years and not understand the basics. So there's an exercise we use. It's each person that's working together writes down as descriptively as possible the responses to this. You get the best of me when, you get the worst of me when, you can count on me for this, and this is what I need from you. And it's amazing the teams that have even worked together long term, and they could go, I had no idea. I had no idea. So Michelle, a colleague of mine, and we do great work together, but I did not know how frustrating it was for Michelle when she would say to me that she would really, really like a plan 2 weeks before something, that she needed that time to sit with it. Whereas I think I'm actually being great coming up with an idea at the last minute. This is even better. And I would think I'm developing and I'm building on something. And I remember we went for a couple of planning days to Cliff at Lyons. And I remember we both did this for the first time. And it was like, oh my God, you weren't just trying to do my head in.
Oh, when you're saying that, I mean, I can totally see that with my own family, even. My sister and my daughter, they like to plan in advance and know exactly what's going to happen, and they don't like it when there's amendments to that plan.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd be like you, coming up the last minute, oh, do you know what? This place here is actually available and it's way better than that other place. And they're like, no, we'll stick with where we are, and, they don't like that change, whereas I'm like, oh, if we can do something better, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally get it. That makes a lot of sense. And definitely those are four fantastic questions that anybody could ask. It could be just you and your VA, right? It doesn't need to be a huge team, but even to know that and do that exercise for yourself and your family would be powerful to do,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Mm.
And Margaret, when someone feels maybe all over the place in
Yeah.
life or business and like that. Maybe they haven't answered those questions yet or done a Gallup strengths exercise or quiz or questionnaire.
Yeah.
How could doing the Gallup strengths maybe help them get clarity in that? Particularly for entrepreneurs, because coming back to messaging and who you speak to and how, and even for a business model, how might Gallup strengths help with that?
It's really difficult to excel. It's really difficult to be productive, to be effective when we're grappling, when we're really not sure what's the best way, what's the way I can be at my most effective. And, something as simple as understanding, am I strongest in strategic thinking? Is this the thing I bring most here? Is it my ability to influence? So my strength is in the influencing domain, that other people, it's about the relationships they build, and other people, their ability to execute, and play to your strengths. Find out what it is you excel in, and absolutely find the people to pass over. There is somebody in the world that not only excels at, but delights in doing what you're brutal at.
Mm.
Proofreading, proofreading is my idea of hell. Going and looking for the missing commas, and it's my idea of hell. There are people that are in heaven, and it is about sharing it, passing it over to somebody who'll delight in it.
Yeah, that's fascinating, I think, too, because sometimes, again, to go back to that jack of all trades thing, we think we have to do it all ourselves, and letting go can be
Yeah.
a difficult thing. And I think definitely for entrepreneurs as well. Now, if anybody's listening, you can tell me if this is not you, but it's the danger in chasing shiny object strategies or tactics or the latest social media platform or, the latest AI tool. That's totally me. Or things that don't align with your innate strength. Like, what's the danger in chasing all those things? Or, again, entrepreneurs, oh, here's a great new opportunity over here, or here's this thing that I could step into. What's the danger in chasing those things if they don't align with your innate strengths?
My shiny object, by the way, up to this year was productivity tools. I spent thousands on Notion. I've never used it.
You could give me lessons, probably.
I never really used it. Brought in two consultants to help me with it. Oh my God, so bad. There's a reason we start our businesses. We have, whether it is a process, a service, a product that we have created. And moving from that one person or two person small entrepreneurial enterprise, we cannot move, we can never scale our business unless we really focus in on, why am I here? What is the greatest contribution I can make to this venture? And I worked through an appreciative inquiry lens. So whether anyone knows about appreciative inquiry, it's about, let's find out what's right here before we start this deep dive into all our problems. And it really is as simple as that. And working through an appreciative inquiry lens, it is, what is it? What are our strengths here? What are the opportunities here? And being really disciplined about turning your focus away from that latest shiny object. I think not allowing myself to look, not even to look at TikTok, at whatever the latest thing that is solving the productivity challenges of the world. I have the simplest system now, and I will not allow myself. I have committed to a year of this system, and it's actually working. We really, really have to. Sometimes it might be as simple as actually auditing how much time we are spending on the shiny object. The book 4,000 Weeks, I wrote a post about it during the week. Have you read that, Deirdre?
No, not, I haven't read the book. It's in my library. I've downloaded it, but I haven't read it yet.
It is, to me, it is the book that when I begin to go off the track, that it's like a slap. And it brings me back to, there is no such thing as perfection. There is the latest shiny thing. There is no shiny thing. And it is finding what's good enough and working with it.
That's powerful. And I think that takes a level of acceptance as well, doesn't it? And yeah, I think it's, for me, what I'm hearing is knowing your strengths and really leaning into them is what will ultimately lead to success, and not being distracted by all of the other stuff is, that's just noise. So I think what I'd love to know to even get more clarity on that, and maybe for people listening, is what's one thing about strengths that's commonly undervalued, but in your experience is like a secret weapon for success?
I think it is seen as a bit fluffy. That, real men chew glass.
What? I've never heard that before.
That is an expression from one of these American, ex-military types, that to succeed in life, we have to get past all our weaknesses. That if we are not able to get past our weaknesses, to beat them, that isn't really success. And that is something, and that is a completely flawed way of thinking, that the more we can turn our attention more to focusing on where we have that talent, the greater the return will be. Absolutely, we don't ignore where we're weak, especially if it's going to trip us up, but we manage it. And we don't allow it any more time or any more energy than we should. Keep the focus on where we're strong. And knowing your strengths, it's much more than knowing them. It's not about knowing a list. It's about investing in them and developing them. What does it actually mean? How can I develop this more? Because lots of people know their strengths, but they don't actually do anything.
So let's talk a little bit about that for 1 second. And let's say someone's listening thinking, but what if my strengths are not entrepreneurial? What if my strengths don't feel entrepreneurial? What would you say to them about that?
I don't think that any strengths cage you into any particular career type. So it's not like people who are really, really strong in relationship building strengths that they should be in a caring role. It's that if there was an entrepreneur beside me who was really, really strong in building relationships, developing people, raising the energy, like good relationship builders in a room, and there's me, which would probably be in a more traditional, what you'd see as entrepreneurial. I'm not highly competitive, but don't have a fear of getting out in front of people, pushing for more, don't have that complacency. But if there was as I say, that entrepreneur really, really strong in relationship building, and this happens so often, people will say, oh my God, how am I ever going to be seen? How am I ever going to build a brand? I have no influencing strengths. This conversation comes up all the time. All the time. It's not about you trying to change who you are to succeed as an entrepreneur. It's about understanding that we don't all need a microphone to influence. We don't all need a big group of people in front of us to build a brand, to sell our products, to build our business. We do it in a different way. And that way is one by one. We build relationships in a different way. And I often talk about a client of mine, and they brought me in to work on bottling their culture. Firstly, understanding it. But they probably would have described their culture before we actually got into understanding it as pints and crack. People like us because we're great for the pints and we're great for the crack. But they had never really thought about some of the practices they had that, no one really named, but you knew you were meant to do it. Like, even if somebody hadn't the budget at this time, they mightn't even have a job, but they had worked with you before, that anyone was given the permission to take that person to dinner, to always nurture that network. And that's something even somebody with none of the traditional entrepreneurial strengths, that's somebody that really understood business is about one-to-one relationships. It's not about the ads on the TV or the billboards. It's about one-to-one. And whatever our way of doing it, we all have that ability to make those connections and to nurture those.
So going back to what you said a minute ago, and like when people become aware of their strengths, they're not just a list. So when they get the list of the strengths, what are some of the things that they can do to develop those strengths or lean into them more or leverage them more?
So firstly, anyone that works with us and does the assessment, there'd be a debrief afterwards. So, I know I was the guinea pig for so many people with all of these different psychometrics over the years. And, in the old days, you put it in a file and you forgot all about it. And I would prefer not to do this work if I thought that this was not something that people were going to be really intentional about using. So in the debrief, and sometimes people will just do the debrief and then they'll do a set of strengths coaching sessions after that. But firstly, we talk about understanding, being able to name it. What does it actually mean? And then we talk about how can you be more intentional about using this strength? And what is also really important is getting visibility for what it is you're uniquely placed to do.
So what might that look like, Margaret?
It could be as simple as making sure that your LinkedIn projected the authentic you, that you don't want a bells and whistles LinkedIn and then they meet a very meek person if ever they were to meet in person. There has to be an alignment. And I talk about, something as simple as the banner reveals something about who you are. Now, when I'm saying this, I'm thinking, what does my banner say about me? But I'm talking now about not say as I do, whatever that expression is, but even the banner that reveals something a little bit about you outside of work. Are you part of a team? Do you run? What is it that you're revealing? And that about section, like this is your opportunity to show the world. And a lot of the people that I work with work in organizations, larger organizations. And from the day they go in, they can kind of switch off. They can kind of lose that ability to keep that message relevant, keep that message up to date. Who am I? What's important? What am I achieving? And doing it, and especially for us Irish people, in a way that does not come across like it is being in any way boasting, which would be the absolute greatest sin for any Irish person. So that it would be a very, very simple first step. But also, you know, meeting people, being quite clear about this is something I do really well. And every business owner, we have to be able to say it. It shouldn't be something our clients or potential clients have to dig to find out.
Yeah.
We need to be able to say, this is one thing I know I'll be able to do for you and do really, really well.
Yeah, yeah. And I love actually most of the clients that I work with, they come to me and they already know that. They're just not sure how to say it. They're
Yeah.
not sure how to communicate that in a way, to your point, that doesn't come across as boastful or arrogant or conceited or, you know, any of those things. And it's also in a way that's clear so that other people can understand what you mean by it. Because again, to your point, these people are all super strong at what they do.
Yeah.
And it's because they're so strong at it, sometimes they just can't articulate what it is that they do because it's so unique as well. They're the one in the 33 million, did you say?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so unique in that 1 in 33 million. I'm going to steal that statistic, Margaret, I think,
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah. Because and I've lost my train of thought there. No, gone.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I think what something just in terms of wrapping up, if you were to shout, if you could, if it was literally the last thing before Armageddon and you were shouting one thing from, you know, some high-rise building somewhere about strengths, what would it be?
I'm not religious, but I think it's almost sinful that most of us go through our lives without being really crystal clear and able to articulate what makes us exceptional.
Mm.
And I don't think there's anything at all boastful. I think it's warped that we think we struggle to do it for ourselves. But if we're talking to somebody who has a young person, a child, a niece, a nephew, somebody close to them that's a lot younger, and to say to them that that person will go through their life and never know what makes them stand apart. You can actually see it. It would
That's
break your
sad.
heart.
When you say it, I'm like, oh, that would be so sad.
Absolutely. And I think that for every one of us, it's not a gift. I think it's something we need to start pushing back on the deficit mindset and start focusing on the strengths mindset.
Mm. So to sum it up, push back on the deficit mindset,
Absolutely.
focus on the strengths mindset.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's a great rallying cry as you're jumping off a building when Armageddon is coming. Focus on your strengths, get the deficits.
And I hope that my strengths is flying at that moment.
So, Margaret, where can people go to get started with their strengths, and or if there's somebody in an organization who might be interested in working with you, where could they go and connect with you to learn more about your work?
I think my LinkedIn or my website, and book a 15-minute chat with me, and we'll talk about how we can work together.
Brilliant. I will share the links for your LinkedIn and your website in the show notes. So if anybody's listening and you want to go and check out Margaret, be sure to catch her there. Margaret, thank you so much for talking to us today all about strengths. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you're like, people need to know this before we go?
Actually, I was trying to remember something there a few minutes ago and it went from me. And it's this little tip that I use that when people would say, how could I ever say that? And I say to people, if you put the two words, I suppose, before I'm bloody brilliant, it's, I suppose where I'm really strong is, or I suppose one of the areas I make the greatest difference. And what it does is it just takes that edge off. So lots of people like to use that, I suppose, before telling the world where they're brilliant.
Yes, I love that. That's a great example. And I'm so glad you remembered it. So I suppose, Margaret, that I don't know what I was going to say with that. No, I'm just going to leave it because I'll mess up my suppose, I think. But I'll come up with one later. Margaret, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on the Master Your Business podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Deirdre. It has been a pleasure. Thanks, Deirdre.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deirdre. Bye-bye.
Wow, what a powerhouse conversation with Margaret Kennedy. Let's do a quick recap of what you've just soaked up today. So firstly, stop obsessing over those weaknesses, because with weaknesses, you're only ever going to average there. Instead, double down on your strengths. That's where you're going to hit exceptional. And second, your strengths aren't just a list, they're muscles. So you've got to flex them. Treat them like you're going to the gym, exercise them, build them, and use them intentionally in your business and life. And thirdly, remember, being a good all-rounder might get you started for sure, but it's playing unapologetically to your strengths that's going to help you to stand out, to scale, and to shine. So here's your action step. If you haven't done your Gallup Strengths Assessment yet, do it. If you have, dust it off and ask yourself, am I really using these strengths in my business every day, or am I stuck in the coleslaw bucket land? And if you loved Margaret's wisdom and want to go deeper, head straight to her website or connect with her on LinkedIn. And I will share her links, as I said, in the show notes. And hey, if this episode gave you an aha moment, share it with another entrepreneur who needs to hear it. That's how we grow this community of bold, brilliant business owners just like you. And finally, don't forget to rate, review, and follow the show wherever you're listening in to from today. And your support absolutely means the world to me and to my team, who help bring more conversations to you just like this one today. So until next time, keep leaning into your strengths and keep mastering your business.